I never thought nightmares could follow you out of sleep. That was the first mistake, believing the line between dream and waking was secure. But in the small, fog-soaked village where my grandmother grew up, the stories warned otherwise. They spoke of something that crept in the dark, slipping through windows and cracks in the walls, settling on your chest while you slept. They called it the Alp. I didn't believe any of it at first. I had been staying in an old timber cottage on the edge of the forest, the kind of place that felt preserved in time. No street lights, no neighbors within shouting distance, just the creaking of wood and the distant cries of owls. The kind of silence you only find when the world has forgotten a place. The first night was peaceful enough, though I woke with a heavy chest like I hadn't slept at all. By the third night, it was impossible to ignore. I would drift into uneasy dreams, only to jolt awake with the pressure of something unseen pressing down on me. My arms wouldn't move, my voice stuck in my throat, my lungs burning for air. And always, I thought I saw the faintest outline in the corner of the room, a shadow with edges that didn't belong. I told myself it was sleep paralysis, a trick of the mind. But then came the sound, a faint, deliberate rustling. Cloth shifting, breathing that wasn't mine. And when I finally forced my body to move, when I sat bolt upright in bed, the air carried with it the faint metallic smell of iron. As though someone had pressed a coin against my tongue. That was the night I realized it wasn't just my imagination. I started locking the windows, bolting the doors, even wedging a chair under the handle at night. Still, it didn't help. The Alp didn't need an invitation, it came regardless. The fourth night was the worst yet. I had just drifted into uneasy sleep when I felt it again. The weight. Not crushing, but suffocating, like an invisible blanket pressed down with a cruel hand. My chest heaved, lungs clawing for air. I tried to scream, but only a thin rasp escaped my throat. My eyes darted wildly around the room, desperate for a shape, a face, anything that would prove this wasn't all in my head. That's when I saw it. In the faint glow of moonlight seeping through the curtains, I caught the outline of something crouched at the edge of the bed. Small, almost childlike, but twisted, its head tilted unnaturally, watching me with an intent far too human. A hat, yes, a crooked, old-fashioned cap, sat perched on its head, absurd and horrifying at once. The Alp. Its weight pressed harder as if savoring my panic. I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe, but I could hear. That slow, steady inhale and exhale, wet, deliberate, too close to my ear. Then came the sound of fabric stretching, like claws dragging across the sheets. I wanted to believe I was dreaming, but the sting of tears in my eyes told me otherwise. My chest felt ready to collapse. Just when I thought I would black out, the weight vanished, the air rushed back into my lungs. I bolted upright, gasping, clutching at my chest, only to find the room empty. Except for one thing. The crooked hat. It lay on the floor beside the bed, as though its owner had carelessly dropped it. My blood turned cold. Sleep paralysis didn't leave souvenirs. I picked it up, trembling, the fabric rough and old as if it had been stitched centuries ago. I dropped it immediately, but it was too late. That was the moment I knew. Once the Alp marks you, it doesn't let go. By the fifth night, I didn't bother trying to sleep. I stayed upright in bed with the lamp on, the crooked hat locked in a drawer across the room. Every creak of the floorboards, every whistle of the wind set my nerves on fire. I told myself I was ready, that light would keep it away. I was wrong. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, exhaustion finally broke me. My eyelids sank despite every ounce of resistance, and in that blurred moment between waking and dreams, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of the drawer sliding open. My body froze. Slow, deliberate steps followed. The boards groaned closer, closer, until the air around me felt charged with a suffocating weight. I snapped my eyes open. The lamp was still on, the room was still lit, yet in the corner stood a shadow darker than the rest, crouched low, its limbs grotesquely long, its face hidden beneath that crooked hat. The Alp hadn't come through a window or a door, it had come straight out of the hat itself. I tried to move, but the weight crushed me again, harder than ever before. My body strained against an invisible force, pinned down like a specimen under glass. My vision blurred as the shadow glided closer, climbing onto the bed with a slow, insect-like crawl. Its face leaned inches from mine, and at last I saw it fully. Pale, corpse-like skin stretched to tight over sharp features. Eyes that gleamed with malicious hunger, pupils dilated like bottomless wells, and that breath, hot, wet, rancid, washed over me in slow, rhythmic waves, savoring my fear. The Alp whispered. The voice was soft, almost mocking, words I couldn't understand, murmured in an ancient tongue, yet the meaning drilled straight into my skull. "You're mine." My heart thundered, my chest burning for air. My lips trembled with the effort to scream, but no sound escaped. Its long, bony fingers brushed across my forehead, and the room seemed to shiver with its touch. Then I realized something more terrifying than the paralysis. It wasn't trying to kill me, it was trying to keep me alive. The Alp fed on fear, on helplessness, on the kind of terror that corrodes the soul one night at a time. It wasn't here to end me, it was here to feed, again and again, until nothing of me was left but a hollow shell. And as the weight grew unbearable, as black spots clouded my vision, I knew this wasn't going to stop, not tonight, not ever. With a sudden snap, the light bulb burst overhead, plunging the room into darkness. The last thing I saw before the shadows swallowed me whole was that crooked hat, perched proudly on its head, tilting as if in victory. The night was silent, unnaturally so, as if the earth itself held its breath. The moon lingered behind a curtain of clouds, casting only fractured silver light across the crooked rooftops. Inside her room, Anna lay on the edge of sleep, caught in that fragile space between waking and dreaming. Her body was heavy, too heavy. She tried to shift, to move her arm, but found it impossible. Her chest rose and fell with shallow, strangled breaths, as though something pressed down on her with an invisible weight. Her eyes darted desperately in the gloom, straining to pierce the shadows. And then she saw it, small at first, no larger than a child, crouched upon her chest. Its form was indistinct, a blur that flickered between shapes, sometimes a man with hollow eyes, sometimes a twisted animal with long, sharp fingers curling against her night clothes. What chilled her most was its face, half shrouded, yet with eyes that gleamed like burning coals. They reflected not the light of the moon, but the fear in her own gaze. A thin, rasping sound filled the air. It took her a moment to realize it was her own breath, stolen, funneled into the creature's mouth. The Alp's lips were pressed against hers without touch, an invisible tether drawing her life away in slow, dreadful sips. She tried to scream, but the sound suffocated in her throat, smothered by the crushing paralysis. The legends had spoken of this. The Alp did not simply haunt, it fed. It fed not on flesh, but on vitality, on the very essence of the living, savoring the terror that blossomed in its victims as it drank. Old villagers had called it a nightmare made flesh, a thing that could slip through keyholes, drift through cracks in walls, and wear the shapes of those you trusted. Her grandmother's warnings echoed in her memory, salt upon the windowsill, iron beneath the pillow, a mirror turned face down to confuse the spirit. But she had laughed then, dismissing them as stories of a forgotten time. Now, with the Alp's fiery gaze boring into hers, she realized too late that the old ways had been born from truth. A shiver ran through the house, as though the walls themselves recoiled. The Alp's weight grew heavier, its shadow stretching, twisting, filling the room until Anna felt as if she were drowning in its darkness. The air grew icy, frost threading across the glass of the window, every breath she could not take stolen deeper into the creature's maw. And then, as suddenly as it had come, it stopped. The Alp's form collapsed into smoke, seeping into the cracks of the floorboards, leaving behind only silence and the faint scent of iron. Anna's chest heaved, dragging in air as though she had been underwater. She sat upright, trembling, certain that if she closed her eyes again, it would return. The Alp does not kill quickly. It lingers, it toys, returning night after night, feeding until its victim is nothing more than a husk of despair. Perhaps even now, as you read this, you feel the pressure on your chest, the weight of invisible eyes in the darkness of your room. Perhaps you wonder if that shallow breath you just took was entirely your own, or if something ancient, something relentless, drew part of it away. You cannot outrun what comes with the night. But you can prepare, salt your windows, turn your mirrors, and never ever ignore the stories whispered by the old. Because the Alp is patient, the Alp is waiting. And tonight, it may choose you. If you want to uncover more cursed legends and face the creatures that haunt the night, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what lurks in the shadows.